welcome back. Welcome to the awesome. We are rounding out our day, and what a great way to round it out with a spark session. So, we would love to welcome John D'Souza, Christie Kittle, and I think she's back. Yay! She is back. So, we are going to welcome them. How we will do this is we have three lightning sessions. John is going to kick us off. Christy again, and Pinar is going to go third for us. So I am going to let John go ahead and kick us off. And feel free to pop any questions that you have in the chat, and definitely use your reactions to share any thoughts on these three amazing topics. So John is going to kick us off to talk about user experience.
Thank you so much, Larissa. My name is John D'Souza. Thank you so much for attending my debut speaking engagement. I am an instructional designer at the Sturm College of Law at University of Denver. And yes, please feel free to overuse the emojis. They are my life source. All right. So I'm going to be talking today. Yes, thank you, guys. I'm going to be talking today about user experience fundamentals for learning professionals. Before we get started, I want to ask everyone a question. You can just respond in the chat. Who here has access to a user experience designer at their place of work? Coca-Cola does. Awesome. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of no's, and that's pretty common in the learning space. So why should we care about UX if so many learning companies just don't have a UX designer? Well, the short answer, I think, is that it's just becoming more and more standard in the tech space. It's a standard investment, not only in high-end web and app development, but most tech companies are investing in user experience design. I've got a few stats for you. 88% of users are less likely to return to a website after they've had a bad experience with it. Mobile users are 5 times more likely to abandon a task if it's not been optimized for their mobile devices. And my favorite one, in a study by Andrew Hogan in 2016, his team found that every $1 invested in UX returns $100. Now, granted, that was specifically with larger companies. Don't go to a freelancer and say, hey, John told me I can spend $2 and you'll give me $200 worth of content. That's not how that works. But that ROI number is hard to ignore. It's 9,900%. What is user experience design? At its most basic level, it's designing the experience you want your users to have. It's really thinking about how somebody interacts with your content. It's not like you've ever wanted a user or a learner to have a bad experience, but sometimes when you're too close to your design, it's hard to see these things. I believe it comes down to putting yourself in the perspective of the learner and minimizing the cognitive dissonance that might happen. And by cognitive dissonance, I mean those points where you're moving along, then all of a sudden things are hard, gears grind to a halt, and you have to figure out how to move forward. At no point should it be difficult for your learners to figure out how to move forward in the experience. And this can get as granular as even the micro copy on the buttons inside of your learning experience. Like this one, proceeding with the operation delete will erase the contents of your hard drive. What do you wish to do? Proceed or delete? I would poop my pants if I got this dialog box, certain that my hard drive was about to be deleted. So I want you guys to imagine a scenario with me. Imagine you're in a new restaurant, or you're at a friend's house, and whatever the case is, you need to use the restroom. So you find out where the restroom is. Imagine with me, you're walking to the restroom. You get to the restroom, you open up the door, and simultaneously as you're closing the door behind you, you're throwing your hand against the wall where your brain told you that the light switch is going to be. and it's not there. Most of us would probably creak the door open a little bit to get that little bit of light in, so we can find that light switch. But some of us, are like fishing around in the dark trying to find that light switch. And these are the moments of cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about. It's like something that you expected to have no trouble with, but then all of a sudden you're confused. And these moments of cognitive dissonance can lead to diminished motivation. It can lead to just an overall soured impression of your entire learning experience. And nobody likes to feel confused when they assume they should be able to just navigate the training that they're supposed to be doing. So what can you do about this? Again, Spark sessions, keeping it sparky. I'm going to move to the 3 things that I think you can do in any of your learning experiences. This may be obvious, but put yourself in your user's shoes. Even the most well-intentioned design work can miss this mark. I love this cartoon where you don't want to be the learning designer that built a really awesome learning experience, but then your users are only seeing animal butts. You have to take the time to really imagine what it's going to be like from the user's perspective, and that's not always the most obvious thing. Number 2 is building learner personas. And this is a really awesome way to do number 1, because sometimes it'd be hard to just put yourself in a new user's shoes. It's hard to imagine. But building learner personas, what you do is you make up these imaginary users, you give them names, and some of them are going to be forced to be at your required training. Some of them are paying to be at your required training. You want to make your personas as diverse as possible, but also keep them as few as possible. You don't want to have a ton of learner personas, but you want to cover as many bases as possible. And I'll tell you right now that one of your personas needs to use a screen reader. This is another excellent way to make sure that you're building accessibility into your design. And the last thing that I'll say is asking your users. User testing and surveys are the bedrock of user experience design. Your own professional experience will never trump hearing directly from the people that are interacting with your design. Any chance you get to interact with your learners, albeit be it in person or through surveys, ask them specifically about their experience. Did they have trouble navigating? If there was an assessment of some sort, was it easy to find the feedback? Most people aren't going to mention these things unless they're prompted. And an excellent study this year from Anne-Marie Buff of Blue Space, 91% of unhappy users don't complain, they just leave. And in the case of required trainings, they can't leave and they're just going to be unhappy and probably learning a whole lot less. So to recap, put yourself in your user's shoes. Build some learner personas so it's easier for you to actually put yourself into these imaginary shoes, and ask your users. They are your number 1 resource for knowing how it's going. So I've included in this slide deck some resources. I've referenced a couple studies that I found at these resources, and a book that I really love, an LXD, Learner Experience Design, which is more what we deal with, is a really awesome field, and it combines instructional design with user experience design, and that's what I love. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, my QR code is here. It's my business card these days. Set up a Calendly meeting with me. Email me. I'll email anyone who wants this slide deck. But that's it for me. I don't know if there were any questions, but.
Lots of great comments out there. So let's give John a big round of applause. Fantastic. So a lot of great comments out there. I think everyone, and we're going to keep it sparky. So I think that might need to be a new tagline, a new hashtag for us. So thank you so much, John. If you have questions for John, please don't hesitate to drop them in chat. And without further ado, we're going to introduce Christie, who is going to join us. Hello, Christie.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Let you take it away.
All right. Welcome. It looks like it's still loading. All right. Awesome. I got some thumbs ups. Welcome. Thanks for joining for the Cool Spark session, keeping it sparky. My name is Christie Kittle, pronouns she, her, hers. We only have 8 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and get kicked off. And for reference, if you follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter, I posted the slides and I'll post at the end so you can have links as well. So to get started, I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. So the point is for aspiring instructional designers. I recognize a lot of names, and so some of you are already in the field. So if you have any other ideas as I go through or any other resources, throw them as you go through. That's perfect. So my first career was actually as a 7th grade math classroom teacher and instructional technology specialist in Texas, where I was born and raised. But once I realized I wanted to transition into instructional design, which I had no idea existed, by the way, which I think is a common thing, I made the decision to get a master's of science in instructional design and technology. There's a lot of fun articles right now about, do you need a degree? Do you not need to? But since this is my journey, I'm telling you, that's what I decided to do. I loved every minute of it. About halfway through that program, I was able to land my first ID gig in a small company, and I was able to work with external training for customers, but also internal things like from fire safety training in our building to leadership and management training. Then my family made the trek across the states to the state of Washington, and that's where I landed an instructional design role for external training at an engineering company. And they're actually in electric power. So a lot of modalities, webinars, web-based, so e-learning, instructor-led, before moving to where I am now, higher education. And so since joining in 2017, my responsibilities have kind of progressed from design to lead designer, and now I supervise the instructional design team. All of that just to say the ideas and the tips and tricks that I'm coming to you today is from my own experience, changing careers at the age of 29, and then also as a hiring manager of instructional designers. So the 3 tips work together. You're actually going to get a lot of little mini tips as well. And I'm going to try to provide some concrete examples, but these will work together. So instead of 1, 2, 3, it's kind of how can these all work together? So shocker, the first one is learn. So as many of us in the field, you're probably addicted to learning and you love it just like I do. You crave the knowledge and how to best disseminate that to others, whether it's UX or not. And that's where I begin my advice today. I think I'm going to include what I think is important to know and then some ideas of how to get that knowledge. So instructional design, learning and development exists in just about every industry, but across industries, it looks different. And even within the same industry, it looks different. So the first suggestion is kind of know what you're interested in. So the title that you see in a job posting, it'll get you to read the description, but not all are created equal. So an instructional designer role at one company could be full building e-learning and storyline. And then another company, you're not building anything, you're just consulting and helping someone else create content. Not that it's good or bad, but just make sure that when you're looking, you know what's looking. So my first suggestion is read job descriptions, look at different companies, and kind of, for me, I kind of ask myself, what are the things that get me really excited, that I'm really interested in? The other thing is nomenclature and vocabulary. As a K-12 teacher and also now in higher ed, we love our acronyms. There are a lot of different things that I was very actively involved in that has a direct line to what I do in instructional design, but we just called it something different. So look at those job descriptions. What are they doing? And then within that, so the functional knowledge, right? So instructional design models, ADDIE, SAM, Agile, and many, many, many others. What tools are they mentioning? Do you want to be doing e-learning, Storyline, Captivate? There's a lot more that I could name. The other things are things like needs analysis and project management. There are tons of books, websites, podcasts, blogs, and I'll throw some out at the end. And if y'all have any cool ones, feel free to drop them in the chat. But there's a lot of complexities to help you navigate. But another way to learn will bring us to the next tip, which is connect, right? Connect with the people in the field. I've been using LinkedIn quite a bit lately. and have connected with peers in the field, and as well as a lot of K-12 teachers trying to jump into design. So one suggestion, maybe you find a company that you're impressed with, whether it's the culture, the love of learning, or maybe you see someone in one of these presentations or in the chat, and they just love what they do. So you can go, hello, can y'all still hear me?
You're still good.
Okay. Going back to it. I got the little red flag of your connection was interrupted. My apologies. All right. So in LinkedIn, so whether someone loves it and you want to learn more about that company, you can go to LinkedIn, Glassdoor. Even in LinkedIn, you can go click that people tab. Have you found someone? Have you seen someone that has your dream job? So maybe there's someone they're like, ooh, I absolutely love what that person does. Connect with them, see what their journey was like. Follow them on social media. Having informational interviews and talking to people is a great way. Some of those are on LinkedIn. GLDC is one of the ways that you could do that. And there are a lot of other programs, ATD, and there's a lot of other things. But again, learning and connecting with people and networking. And I say networking, you can define that word as you will. But there's so many amazing leaders in the field, right? And so so I couldn't name them all, but I'm going to post a few names as well for you to follow. And then here we go. And I think someone has some sound on in the background that I can hear. So I have named a few. I also see fabulous Dr. Tracy in here. She's another good name. I have this slide deck that you can, and John, hi, John. There's so many people, follow them, find out what they're posting. They have a lot of great ideas. Tip 3, build. So this one might seem obvious, and it's easier said than done. But this tip takes all the things that you learned, the criteria, the responsibles, what excites you, what fuels your fire. Those are the type of things that you need to make sure are incorporated into your resume and your portfolio. So I have links at the end. So I've got some links about like example resumes and how you can phrase like a K-12 teacher skill into an ID skill. And building your portfolio is really important, some with and some without e-learning. The hardest part for me was branding myself as a designer and not a classroom teacher. It was about changing my vocabulary in these deliverables out loud. Example, pedagogy. Don't hear that word actually talking in the corporate world, but I hear it all the time in K-12 and higher ed. So when you're building those resumes, tailor for that job that you want. Each of the bullets in the job description, can you do it? What have I done that directly translates to this? Use that wording. And if you don't know, how can you fill that gap? And I know I'm out of time, so my bonus tip is you are fabulous. You can do it. There are so many wonderful people to connect with, and this is an amazing community. So don't let anybody tell you that you can't just because you haven't done it before. And I will post links, and I think my time is up. I didn't see any questions.
I didn't see any questions, but Christie, you are fabulous. Thank you so much. Teachers hold a special place in my heart forever and ever. So thank you so much. And to round us out, we have Pinar, and we'll let her join us on the screen. There you are.
Hello.
Hello, yay. We were having a little bit of sound difficulty earlier, but you sound fantastic. I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Larissa. Hi, everyone. My name is Pinar Ozmizrak. Thank you for bearing with my technical difficulties. I'm going to be presenting about virtual field trips today, so we can think of it as a field trip complete with virtual potholes as well. So let me get right into it by taking you guys all on a field trip. So when was the last time you guys did go on a field trip? Give me some emoji reactions if it was during elementary school, middle school. Okay, and have any of you been on a field trip during the pandemic? Give me some reactions if you have. Yeah, maybe not as much. So this can be your first pandemic field trip in that case. So I hope my screen is successfully being shared right now. Okay. I would be remiss if I were not to acknowledge the highest authority when it comes to field trips, the children's TV show, The Magic School Bus. Yes.
Pinar, hey, Larissa, it's not showing just yet. So let's give it a moment. Sometimes it delays just a bit.
Sorry about that. Well, this image that should be loading up is a picture of the Magic School Bus. So if you were a kid in the 90s in North America, you probably have heard of that before. It's essentially children going on fantastical adventures inside the human body, into outer space. You know, places you wouldn't actually be able to go, but in going there, you're getting first-hand access to learn about that environment. So now that things are virtual, that's one way that we can take advantage of these things by going on such field trips. So I'll share all of these links in the chat as well. So just in case there are some loading issues, this first field trip we're going to take is to a nearby location, Starbucks. And if it's been a while since you were last in a Starbucks and you're really missing that experience of, you know, the coffee, the lights, the customer, this website is just for you. It's the 360-degree view of a real Starbucks. Now, what's the use of being in a space like this? What can you do with this in an academic context? Well, we're all very creative here in learning design, but an idea that I came up with was making use of this in language learning. So especially when you're just starting out learning a language, it's so important to practice your conversation skills. And you can do that right here in a coffee shop, ordering something, talking with another customer. And by making use of this virtual space, we can also expand on students' vocabulary by pointing out to the different visuals in the space. So that's one use of a science. Moving on to a different site, which you've used for finding directions to someplace, but you can also make use of it in an academic context, because Google Street View has all of the wonders of the world, actually. So that way you can make use of this by a trip to a museum. You can actually use the Street View to take your class virtually to the street, to the museum, onto the Louvre site, and then you can actually in and visit this way. So this is a way that you can buy two websites to actually take class, full experience, and get different.
Hey, Pinar, it's Larissa. We're losing you. I think your bandwidth is dropping a bit. Let's see if we can get you back. We'll give her a minute. Technology does not always want to cooperate with us. And I was so fascinated, as all of us were. Oh dear. We'll give it a minute. In the meantime, if anyone wants to ask any questions to John and Christie, my singing voice is not warmed up right now. Otherwise, I would belt out a tune. I'm hoping she comes back. But I love a good karaoke night. So there is a fantastic playlist. If you have not, I'm going to grab it. I have it in my little cheat sheet. If you have not heard this fantastic playlist yet, I think you should. We have a great Spotify playlist. I'm going to pop it in the chat. So we're going to give it a couple of more minutes. So speaking of karaoke, what's everyone's go-to karaoke song? What gets you on that stage and starts you to belt out a tune that you just can't? Is it Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi? Is it, oh my goodness, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen is a favorite one. Yes, John. Yes, New York, New York is a good one. That's a classic. Beastie Boys. Oh my goodness. I was singing Beastie Boys on a road trip recently. I love Bette Midler's Beast of Burden. Yes. You know what? We all need good audience participation, Angela, so I'm okay with that. Bill Withers, Ain't No Sunshine. That's a classic and a great one. Pinar, are you back with us, my dear? Okay. I think she was having technical difficulties before. So what we will do is we will try to get her recorded and share with everyone. I thank you all so much for your patience. If there are any questions for John and Christy, please feel free to pop them in the chat. Everyone is hanging out in the lounge, so be sure to try to catch up there and have a fantastic Friday. I think we're going to round things out with John and Liz, and then everyone will be able, they'll be headed off for the rest of their day, afternoon, evening. So thank you so much for your patience, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.